Hi, I'm Max Linneberry, and today I will be telling you about the history of Glacier National Park in Montana. I chose this location because this is one of my favorite national parks to go to, and I go to it hopefully about once a year. During the Paleozoic time period, the area known today as Glacier National Park found itself under a shallow sea much like the rest of the western United States. This time period saw more layers of sediment getting added on top of the belt rocks from millions of years prior. These relatively shallow seas didn't compact the rock during this time period nearly as much as they had in previous periods of being underwater, and therefore this layer has been eroded in most of the park. The sediments from this time were mostly dolomite, quartzite, and sandstone. During the Paleozoic, in the shallow belt sea that laid over this area during this time, lived lots of different sorts of life. At the beginning of the era, life only existed in the water, in the form of animals such as the trilobite and different sorts of mollusks. Another thing that grew throughout this era was giant ferns. Somewhere in the middle of the era, during the Silurian period, life figured out how to survive on land and the animals started changing. This was when the dinosaurs ruled the land and the seas. During the first half of the Mesozoic time period, this area was still under the shallow sea with the rest of the western half of the United States. This time period is represented by the layers of shale you can see all over the park. Then, about halfway through this era, the Lewis Thrust Fault started to slowly but steadily uplift and started molding the mountains. This thrust fault forced older belt rocks up on top of younger rocks and about 50 miles to the east. The Mesozoic was a time period where more life was learning to move onto land to survive. This led to a huge diversification of life as plants began to diversify alongside life on both land and water. This was also the time when the dinosaurs started taking over. Many fossils of bivalves have been found in this park from this time period as well. The Cenozoic period saw the Lewis Thrust Fault continue to push rocks up to create the modern-day Rocky Mountains in the area. This period was also full of many different glaciation periods that caused a lot of mass wasting and carving of valleys. The first glaciation in the park, the Bull Lake Glaciation, lasted from 280,000 years ago up until about 130,000 years ago. The second period the park saw during this era, from 32,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, was called the Pinedale Glaciation. The last one, a small glaciation period, was called the Santana Peak Advance. This last one led to the creation of the streams that have been eroding valleys in the park since about 4,000 years ago. This time period in the park saw the rise and decline of the woolly mammoth, which dominated much of its time here on Earth, but that slowly was killed off by change in habitat. Large grasslands across the area kept lots of herbivores happy, and bison is mastodon as well. This time period also saw the rise of humankind. Humans came into the Americas around 15,000 years ago, but not much is known about if they made it to Glacier Park way back then. Humans have since been affecting the park's biology and geology with hunting, as well as climate change, which has hurt many animals' habitats. One of the most important things that I learned in this unit, or in this project, was that the Lewis Thrust Fault is the reason that you can't see many old rocks in the park. Because the Lewis Thrust Fault was a lot older than the rocks that were on the surface, but when it started rising over the top of the surface of the Earth, it covered these up. So these are way down beneath the ground and not really able to be seen by us. Thank you.